Tired of scientific jargon? Get the facts without the friction. This is Weekly Digested Science, where we translate the world's most significant peer-reviewed research into your weekly news update. For a trustworthy source of knowledge, hit like and subscribe.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into something fundamental, challenging that old idea, the one where the brain's the boss and muscles just do what they're told.
Exactly. It's way more sophisticated than that. Our sources are showing it's this constant conversation, a real two-way street between muscle and brain.
And this affects, well, everything, doesn't it? Recovery, performance, even how your brain is structured.
Absolutely. For this deep dive, we've got a good mix, some cutting-edge physiology reviews looking at the cellular level, clinical studies on prehab that's preparing before downtime, and some really big population neuroscience data.
All focused on how our bodies handle activity, disuse, injury, the whole cycle.
Right. And our goal really is to show you the evidence, how changes in physical activity, even small ones, immediately impact neural function.
We need to unpack those mechanisms, from cellular memory right up to brain structure, and understand why specific training is so crucial.
Crucial for both getting truly strong and for recovering optimally.
Okay, let's start with the classic view. Brain sends signal, muscle contracts. That's the antegrade path, right? Simple command.
That's the one we all learned first. CNS to spinal cord, motor neuron fires, acetylcholine release, muscle action potential. Boom.
But if it's a two-way street, what's the muscle saying back? What's that return message?
That's the retrograde signaling. And it's fascinating. The whole system, brain, spine, muscle, it's all integrated.
So the muscle isn't just listening?
Not at all. It's acting like an endocrine organ, actually. It's constantly secreting molecules, messengers that talk back to the nervous system.
Okay, messengers. How do they get from, say, your bicep all the way up to your brain or spinal cord?
Two main ways, based on what we're seeing. First, some molecules, people call them myokines sometimes, they just enter the bloodstream. Systemic transport.
They circulate everywhere.
Right. And eventually, some cross the blood-brain barrier, directly influencing the brain. Mood, metabolism, all sorts.
Okay, that's one route. What's the other?
The second one is maybe even more direct. These molecules get taken up right there at the neuromuscular junction, the nerve-muscle connection point.
At the synapse itself.
Exactly. And then they're actively transported backwards along the motor neuron, straight up to the spinal cord.
Wait, hang on. So it's not just general mail delivery through the blood. It's like sending a specific memo right back up the original wire.
That's a great way to put it. And that interconnectedness, that constant dialogue, explains why disuse hits so hard and fast.
You mean like bed rest or having a cast on?
Yeah, even just a few days. We see muscle mass drop, obviously, but the neural side tanks too. The signal strength, brain plasticity. It all suffers because that feedback loop, that conversation, gets cut off.
The system needs the chat to stay healthy.
Pretty much, yeah. It relies on it.
Which makes prehabilitation.
Well, it sounds incredibly powerful then. If the whole system degrades quickly, exercising before the planned downtime, like surgery, that's not just about saving muscle, is it? It's about keeping the neural lines open. That's the whole idea behind prehab. Targeted exercise before you know you'll be immobilized or less active. And the evidence is really stacking up across different medical fields.
Like orthopedics, cancer treatment.
Exactly. The data shows it helps preserve muscle function, leads to fewer complications after procedures, and this is a big one. It often shortens hospital stays.
That saves money and gets people home faster.
Right, because we know disuse causes rapid declines everywhere. Brain, spine, muscle prehab essentially builds up a buffer, a physical and a neural reserve.
Makes total sense. Build up savings before you know you have a big expense coming. But beyond just having more in the tank, what are the specific ways prehab protects you, the mechanisms?
We can group them into three main categories, sort of. First, like you said, just enhancing that pre-disuse capacity, building the reserve.
Okay.
Second, establishing memory, both neural memory and muscle memory. Powerful stuff.
We'll come back to that one. What's the third?
Third is fostering actual structural adaptations. Physical changes in the muscle fibers themselves and potentially even in the brain before the disuse period hits. Preparing the hardware.
Okay, let's circle back to memory. That's always fascinated me. You stop lifting for ages and you come back and regain strength so much faster than the first time. Where is that memory stored? Is it all brain or is the muscle thinking?
Well, not thinking exactly, but it's definitely stored in both places. You've got the central command, the brain and the local tissue, the muscle itself.
So neural memory first. How does that work?
When you learn a complex movement, like a squat or even playing an instrument, your brain creates a detailed map, a motor representation. It figures out which muscle units to fire when, how hard,
Yeah.
the whole sequence.
Like software for movement.
Precisely. So when you return after a break, your brain doesn't have to go through that whole painful skill learning phase again. It just loads the software. That accelerates strength recovery hugely.
Like riding a bike. Kind of. The basic program is still there.
Exactly. But then there's the second part, which is maybe even cooler science-wise, local tissue memory in the muscle fibers.
Okay, now this sounds like the muscle remembering.
It kind of is. It's explained by something called myonuclear permanence.
Right, I've heard that term. Break it down for us. Myonuclear, muscle nuclei.
Spot on. Think of the nucleus as the cell's control center or factory. When muscle grows hypertrophy, it needs more control centers to manage the larger space so it gains new nuclei.
Makes sense. Bigger factory needs more managers.
Right. Now, the permanence part is the key discovery. When you stop training and the muscle shrinks back down, atrophy, those extra nuclei you gained, they don't disappear.
They stick around, even when the muscle is smaller.
Yes, they remain sort of dormant. These are the engines that drive protein synthesis, the building blocks of muscle.
So the extra factories are mothballed, not demolished.
Perfect analogy. When you start training again, the muscle doesn't need to spend weeks building new nuclei from scratch. It just reactivates the existing ones. The blueprints are already there.
That must speed things up massively.
It does. Combine that with epigenetic changes, basically how genes are switched on or off based on past activity, and you have this powerful cellular memory making the rebuild much faster.
That's incredible. So memory is both brain software and muscle hardware. Okay, let's connect this to performance. Those first few weeks of lifting, you get way stronger, but you don't necessarily look much bigger. That's mostly neural, right?
Absolutely. Early gains are dominated by the nervous system figuring things out. And one of the biggest initial tricks it learns is reducing antagonist coactivation.
Antagonist, the opposing muscle. Like hamstrings when you contract your quad.
Exactly. Your body naturally applies the brakes a bit, maybe for stability or to prevent injury. When you start training, your nervous system gets better at easing off those brakes during the main movement.
So you're not fighting yourself as much.
Precisely. Some studies showed that just reducing this opposing force could explain maybe up to a third of the strength increase in the very first week of isometric training. It's pure neural efficiency.
Wow. Okay, so that's novices. What about experienced lifters, the resistance trained folks?
Well, they generally show greater maximal activation. They can just voluntarily recruit more of their muscle fibers when they go for a max effort. They have better access to their potential.
Makes sense. Better command signal.
But here's something really interesting. During sub-maximal tasks, lifting something that isn't their absolute max trained individuals often show less muscle activity than untrained people doing the same amount of work.
Less activity for the same output. That sounds efficient.
Extremely efficient. Their nervous system has become so precise, so optimized, it uses less energy, less neural drive to achieve the same mechanical outcome. It's a beautifully refined signal.
That refinement brings us to training intensity. There was that study comparing guys training with heavyweights, like 80% of their max, versus lightweights, like 30%, but both groups went to failure.
Right. Untrained men, 4 weeks of training, what did they find?
Well, interestingly, both groups got bigger muscles, similar increases in muscle thickness, around 7 to 9%.
So for just pure size, hitting failure seemed key, regardless of weight.
It looked that way. But, and this is the crucial part, only the high load, the heavy lifting group, saw significant increases in their actual 1-rep max strength.
So getting bigger didn't automatically translate to getting maximally stronger for the low load group.
Exactly. It highlights specificity, doesn't it? Maximal strength seems tied to needing that specific high-intensity stimulus, the kind of signal needed to actually move heavy weight.
It makes sense neurologically. You need to train the nervous system to recruit everything, especially those high-threshold motor units that only come online for heavy efforts. Lifting light to failure might fatigue the muscle, but it doesn't necessarily teach the brain how to generate that maximal coordinated oomph.
The nervous system adapts only to the specific demand you place on it. Lift heavy to get strong at lifting heavy.
That's the essence of it.
Okay, we've gone from cells to performance. Let's zoom out now. Big picture. Population studies. How does something really basic, like grip strength, connect to the wider system, even brain health?
This is where data from huge studies like the UK Biobank becomes really powerful. They found strong cross-sectional links. People with stronger hand grip strength tended to also have better cognitive function.
Like thinking skills.
Yeah, memory, processing speed, also higher life satisfaction, better subjective well-being, and fewer symptoms of depression and anxiety.
Wow. And you mentioned this link was sometimes stronger in women.
For several outcomes, yes, the correlation appeared stronger in females in that data set.
Okay, correlation is one thing. But does strength lead to better brain health? Or is it just that generally healthier people are both stronger and have better cognition? Chicken and egg.
Great question. They looked at that longitudinally tracking people over time. They found that baseline grip strength, measured at the start, significantly predicted cognitive performance 9 years later.
So strength now predicted better thinking skills down the line.
That's what the data suggests. It points towards the relationship often flowing from muscular capacity towards subsequent cognitive and mental well-being.
Okay, but how? Is it just good chemicals flowing around, or is there a physical connection in the brain structure itself?
There seems to be a physical structural link. Stronger grip strength was associated with greater gray matter volume, basically. More brain tissue, particularly in areas like subcortical regions and the temporal cortex.
Areas involved in memory, emotion, important stuff.
Very important. And here's the kicker, the concept of mediation.
Right. Explain mediation for us. It sounds technical, but it's crucial here.
It's the evidence that seals the deal, really. Mediation means that the increased gray matter volume wasn't just something happening alongside better cognition. It was the mechanism through which strength had its positive effect.
So stronger grip, more gray matter in key areas, better cognitive function and mental health. The brain volume is the bridge.
That's exactly it. It suggests that physical capacity contributes somehow to the physical structure of your brain, and that structure then supports better mental function. It's a tangible link.
Mind blown. The muscle is absolutely not a dumb machine. It's talking back, influencing recovery, efficiency, even the literal volume of your brain. Every single rep is, like you said, a conversation.
It really reframes everything. And if we take this back to recovery, thinking about neuroplasticity, injuries like an ACL tear are a perfect example.
Yeah, tearing your ACL isn't just a knee problem, is it?
No, it messes with the brain's map for that leg.
Right.
The motor pathways get scrambled. We see functional changes in the brain post-injury.
And the standard advice is often wait 9 months or so before returning to sport because it cuts re-injury risk dramatically. We think that's tissue healing time.
And it is, partly. But it's probably also the time the brain needs to slowly, maybe passively, re-normalize those motor pathways to figure out how to control the leg again.
Okay, so the long wait allows the brain time to adapt.
Right, which leads to a really provocative question for the future of rehab. Can we actively speed that up? Does focused neuroplastic training change the timeline?
What kind of training?
There are models emerging, like something called the Neuroplastic Adaptation Trident model. It uses things like sensory tricks, making athletes make decisions during movement, adding cognitive distractions.
So training the brain to move correctly under pressure, not just strengthening the knee.
Exactly. It's about increasing movement variability, forcing the brain to actively problem solve and rewire, maybe using an external focus of attention. If the standard 9-month wait works partly because damaged neural patterns slowly fade or adapt.
Could this active brain training replace those faulty patterns much faster? Could it offer a genuine, safe shortcut to being ready both physically and mentally?
That's the bleeding edge. If we can reliably accelerate the brain's rewiring, we're not just talking about faster recovery. We're potentially changing the fundamental limits of how well and how quickly humans can bounce back from serious injury.
That is a huge thought to end on. Massive implications across the board. If you're listening and thinking about your own training or recovery, remember that specificity isn't just about muscles. It's about speaking the right language to your entire nervous system. Thanks for guiding us through this integrated view today.
My pleasure. It's fascinating stuff.
We hope this deep dive gave you a lot to think about, especially that conversation happening between your muscles and your brain. We'll catch you on the next one.
Under the canopy where shadows play, crickets sing secrets at the edge of day. A bird calls sharp like a question in the